I guess let's jump straight in and ask, do any of us or do any of you think our industry will ever be the same again?
Oh, that one's
Silence.
met with a lot of silence there, didn't it? Well, I have to say, no, it won't be the same again, because I'll tell you one thing. I am devastated at the amount of people, the young ones, who are now saying they have no money. And I really think that when directors, designers, creatives get their money up front, yes, they do the work beforehand. Actually, so do we. We have to learn things. We get absolutely no money whatsoever for doing any of our learning, of our sorting out. No, I think that we should be paid something up front for the amount of time that we're going to spend learning. And then if something like this happens again, and the companies say force majeure, then force majeure should mean you'll be paid for the amount of work that you've done. So that's my attitude. Who else?
I completely agree with that. Absolutely, yeah. Somebody else.
Yeah, but I also think apart from that, that's a very good point. I didn't even think of that yet, but yes, indeed. I also think depending on how long this whole situation lasts, we'll have to think of, or we, anyway, creatives have to think of maybe other ways of reaching an audience, because now an audience is suddenly a dangerous environment, whereas before it was a wonderful gathering of energy and people exchanging things and experience. And suddenly it's a dangerous thing. So I can hear around me that people are thinking of other ways of shaping their performances to still reach people, for instance, through these technical measures, but also in different live settings where people are not a danger to each other, but can still experience art. And I think the longer it lasts, the more people will come up with different ways of presenting our art than we have used so far. Or it will maybe be a quicker process of change. But I certainly hope that we'll get to big audiences as well, because the energy that comes from a large group of people, it can not be copied in any way by any technology. So hopefully that will not disappear completely, but I do think there might be some changes in the way we express ourselves.
And also the worry, I suppose, is that when things do go back to some sort of normality, and I don't know what that normality will be, my concern is that government funding, the last thing on anybody's mind is going to be the arts. It's already decreasing. It's already bad enough. The Arts Council is, funding is pretty disgraceful in our country, particularly compared to Germany and their percentages. Although the German houses still didn't pay any of their artists, to my knowledge, which was disappointing. But I feel that I hope that the public realise, and I think that they will, that when things are tough, it's the arts that save us. We have to feed our soul, and I'm hoping that no matter how hard things get, and I think we're going to be thrown into financial adversity that none of us have ever known in living memory, I am hoping that the need to feed the soul will still be there to keep our art form and other art forms alive.
I agree. The thing is, I've seen on Twitter a lot of people saying, I'm so desperate for a live experience. And I'm thinking, great. And I'm really pleased that you're feeling that way. Long may it last. But then they're saying, but we've got lots of things to look at the internet. Excuse me, ladies, are any of us being paid for that? Now, obviously we're not. And I'm glad that our work is reaching people. But at the moment, if the companies are not going to pay us, but they're going to use our work, then something really should give in some way. And not a little note that says, do you mind? Good. Which is what I receive. We're going to do that. Stuff that I did 10, 15 years ago is coming up on the internet, and I'm thinking, oh, sweet mother of God, did I really do that?
You want to change your name on this account?
Yes! How did you do it? No, seriously.
Have you, though, this is interesting, have any of you been watching yourselves in anything that's been streamed?
No.
Oh no.
Oh.
No.
I find this hard to see myself on the screen.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Particularly, Ollie told me recently that was it my Carole? Well, no, the gang.
The production the two of you both did, the Romeo and Juliet from Vienna.
And wasn't there a picture or something of the gang rape scene in the Shostakovich that came up somewhere?
Yeah,
and
yes, in Vienna.
I don't want to be put off my food.
Well, frankly, Rosie, my whole career has gone along the lines that I was raped and naked on that stage, that Martin Cuchet thing. And people say to me, were you the one that, oh, you know, that's fine. This bit I don't mind. I just, you know, being sensible, think that the opera company is still getting money. The opera companies themselves are still getting money. And a little bit of a thanks, ladies, would be very nice, actually, particularly as none of us are getting any money at all. I have to say that it's people like you, Rosie, that I worry about, because you've got a huge career in front of you, and I'm looking forward to going, yay, that's Rosie, because I'm finishing. I'm 60, I can't go on forever. But it's the young ones who have less money behind them and more people to depend on them. Something should be done. Sorry, that's me.
I agree.
I vote for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of things like, though, thinking about changes, how things might change, what do we feel about how it will be to when this all starts again, when we start working again, and being in a rehearsal room, or being in a rehearsal room with a chorus and this kind of thing? I mean, we are all going to think about it differently. We have to, maybe.
Yes, I think if anybody sneezes in our general direction, we'll be running very fast in the opposite direction.
Weren't we always, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, for me,
Yes.
in that sense, really nothing changed.
No,
I never touched pin pads in supermarkets or buttons in elevators or in public transport before either. And this strange sensation that everybody's now living the way I was always living, actually.
Yeah. It's like, welcome to our world.
Yeah.
And I always was the first person to go up to the stage management desk and say, we need hand sanitizer everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, particularly with big chorus shows. You know, I was always concerned anyway. So, you know, I think in that respect, nothing will change.
No.
We'll just carry on being neurotic.
Yeah.
But then in terms of the fear of coronavirus itself, I think one has to, at some point, and this may be flippant to say, but at some point you have to face death and just go for it, actually. I think, at some point.
Yeah, we can't live here forever, can we?
No, we can't run away.
No.
We can't keep running.
What are we going to do? Sit at home and not do anything together anymore? I was thinking about that, and I think it's not worth it.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not worth it.
Yeah.
No. It's not sustainable, this sort of isolation.
I don't think it. Because I can even feel that's just a personal thing. I have no family, and I feel I haven't touched another human being for 5 weeks now, and it starts to get to you. It's the weirdest sensation.
I could send my toddler over, bubble wrap.
Send your toddler over by mail, so it might make it.
No, I think everything that you said is utterly right. And I think all of us have to make the step into normal social interaction. But I think for us as singers, I think the concept of hello, mwah, it's just not going to happen in a rush. It's going to be, hi, nice to see you. No.
Yeah.
But we do that anyway. Come on, we do that anyway. Yeah. It's like, oh, don't come near me. I think I'm starting a cold.
Yeah.
That's
exactly, because I was always conscious before this whole thing started. When I went to a concert to hear my colleagues or something I was insisting on hearing, I would very often have a scarf over my face for this reason, because I was always conscious of who's around me. Because for us, a little cold can be, put us out of work. Now that's like the whole world is turned around. It's not us that are sick; it's all the other ones. This very strange sensation of upside down world.
No, but going back to this idea of isolation, you know, Steffi, you were talking about it, but do we have to take this period of isolation, or what we're all having to do now? I mean, it's not really a choice, is it? We're having to do it. Is it a time where we should be resetting certain things, or thinking about, oh, actually, for the last few years, I've done it this way. Maybe I now have the time to think of something in a new way, or work on something in a new way. Is this period, are we allowing for that? Are we thinking about that at all?
No, I'm just thinking of learning.
I'm thinking about it, but I decided I don't want to change anything. So there.
Actually, that's exactly how I feel, because I really thought about that point, and I thought, personally, I've always placed huge importance on time with my family. Anyway, I'm a family girl, but what it's made me realise, which I didn't need a reminder of, is just how much I bloody love my job, and how greatly I miss it. And so, you know, I keep singing through things, because I think, I don't know if you girls, after the first job was cancelled, I realised things were going to get worse and worse, and I couldn't sing for a couple of weeks, which was very unlike me, and I couldn't do it because I felt grief-stricken. I know that might sound extremely melodramatic, because of crying, but I felt so desperate for because it was a big deal what I'd lost, and I couldn't sing for a while, and then I slowly introduced myself back into it by singing things that I loved and that meant a lot to me, and things that, and then I sang songs from shows, and then I slowly got back into just singing, you know, repertoire I need to be focusing on, and it sometimes after a practice I just want to cry, because I miss my colleagues, everything.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't change my feelings of anything for me. It's been lovely to spend some time with my family, but I'm lucky enough that my family travel with me when I travel for work, which is extremely lucky in this business. And really, I just miss traveling. I miss seeing my European colleagues. I miss my job.
Yeah. I feel as if my wings have been clipped.
Yes.
And I really don't like it. And I need to get out. And again, on a more sort of flippant note, my husband and I have been married for 33 years. The reason that we're still together is...
Go there.
But it's true. I think the fact that you travel with your family, Rosie, fair play to you, but I like my couple of weeks away. And then David comes later, you know, which is fine, which is really good. And that's why we're still together. But I must admit, in lockdown, there's sort of little things that I think, don't do it that way. Oh, you've always done it that way. I'm sorry, I never noticed. Yeah.
Well, I guess, Stephanie, it must have been interesting, though, because you were actually, I don't think, Helena, Carole, Rosie, this was quite the same situation. Steph, you were actually rehearsing a piece, basically, when this all began. I mean, I know we've all dealt with cancellations, but you were actually in the rehearsal room of a production that shut down. Once after stage rehearsal.
No, that was it was. I mean, it was interesting to see amongst the cast. You know, we had a number of Italians, and they were obviously alarmed by what was happening in Italy. And problems started with, you know, at first it was, well, our family can't now come to France anymore, but very quickly there was a lot, particularly amongst maybe one or two of the cast members, they became very, very anxious about. They saw a good 5 weeks before it happened that it was likely that the show was going to get cancelled, that they could see how quickly the stuff was spreading, and they just figured it would happen, and they were right. I mean, everyone said, no, you're overreacting, it's not going to happen, it's not going to spread that quickly, it won't get that bad here, or, you know, but so the speculation went from this is an overreaction to, I mean, over how many weeks? Probably 4 or 5 weeks. Something like that. Maybe fewer even. Maybe 3, 4. I can't really remember now.
I was working.
But yeah, it was it was strange. It was actually a bit surreal.
I was working in Madrid, and we finished, I came home on the 29th of February, and at that point we were, you know, a little bit sort of tentative, but not really. People didn't seem at all worried in the building. And from literally in the space of 2 weeks, it had gone from people not really reacting or noticing or behaving any differently to total lockdown. And I mean, so fast. I mean, we've been in touch with our Spanish colleagues and friends that we made when we were there, and everybody's, thank God, at the moment is okay. But so fast.
Yeah.
And in England, though, maybe not fast enough.
Not fast enough.
No. There you go.
But
we will judge everything in 5 years and see who was right doing what, because frankly, we're in such a that there's just no telling what's right or what's wrong. I mean,
no.
But just we were talking about, like when we sort of began talking about this idea of how things are going to, is it ever going to be the same? But you know, and there are so many elements to that conversation, of course, but creatively as well, there were big steps I think we were all trying to make in the next month that we can't do. And it's this feeling of grief. I mean, Carole, you were going back to a role you hadn't sung for 12 years, a dream role.
I know.
But there were things that I know, you know, we're all in that position. I mean, Rosie, you've been working on a piece for over 2 years getting it.
I can't talk about it without
she will cry.
But there is also this creative grief, which is, you know, I waited a long time for that part. Is it going to come along? Going to come along again?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting what Rosie said about not singing, because I haven't sung since I got back from France. I have and this is maybe personal, but I have a different issue. My daughter is very, very ill. So that's taken up a lot of my time and focus. But the singing, people keep saying, have you been singing, Stephanie? Have you been singing? Have you been singing from your balcony? You know, this sort of romantic idea. And I haven't been singing. And I do think I think I haven't described it as grief like you have, Rosie, but what I have done is kind of closed the door, like I'm putting that away because I don't know what else to do. I don't know how else to kind of cope with the sort of uncertainty of the future that Ollie's trying to get us to discuss.
Yeah.
And I guess part of it is just, well, I'm going to put it away until I know what to do. And then I'll have.
That's grief, isn't it? It's because everybody handles grief differently, and that's one way of handling is just saying, do you know what? That needs to sit there until I'm ready to do that. And I think there's no right or wrong in this. You have to respond to it however is best for you, and especially with an ill child. You know, there's only so much that you can do, and compartmentalizing, I think, is underrated.
Yeah. No, I'm in with that. Definitely.
Follow the men. That's what they do.
Yeah.
But so we're thinking about or talking about this changing world, how it's going to be different. But all of you, I nearly said us, but all of you have been involved hugely, quite recently, in various new works or about to be. I mean, I know Carole will never forgive me for making her learn Gerald Barry's Alice's Adventures Underground. She's never going to. But
I'm so sorry, I missed that.
But how is that something we should all be thinking about more? This idea of it is going to be a new time. How important is new work? Are we going to see I mean, we've already seen a Zoom opera about COVID-19, but new work, and how is that going to exist, you know, going forward? Everything changes. Does this change too?
I don't.
It's really hard. I mean, I think until we all get over this craving for what Helena described, I mean, I certainly have the same, and I'm sure we all do, I have the same longing for the communal experience. It's until somehow we can just in a way park that, or just accept that we're going to have to find something else it can't replace it. I just do not. I can't let go of it. I cannot let go of it so quickly, and say, well, we just have to now figure out how to do Zoom, whatever. It's just, I think it won't satisfy what we do. It's just so inadequate. It's so inadequate. And but I don't want to be negative, and I think probably we will eventually need to embrace interesting ways of connecting that aren't communal. It's I just don't know how that'll happen. I don't want to be negative, but it's really
the computer nerds. But no, but I think in terms of art being a reflection of the times, always we are a mirror to human experience into the time. So how can we not have things that reflect on this time? This is such an extraordinary and extreme time that there's going to be people, and maybe not us. I'm not a composer, nor a writer or a filmmaker. I'm not a maker. I'm a recreator, but I would certainly be inspiring people to write me things to reflect on this time, because it's just such an extreme human experience, and all these things we're talking about are really reflections of our feelings and of what we value in life. And I think it will come back in new pieces, and I'm just not even going to think about not having an audience, because I can't handle it. So I've been singing every day because I am a singer, and therefore I will sing, and if it's just for myself, But I was emailing with a composer that is supposed to write something for me for the fall, so God knows whether it will happen or not. But and she said that she went into this kind of creative lockdown because she just couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I said, but do something, dream, dream beyond this time, dream and time travel to the future where it's not like this anymore, and do something, write me something. And she said, okay, I'll write you something by the end of this month. I said, yes, and I'm going to hold you to it, just to try and get each other to, I totally understand your case where you have a child, and I don't have children. So I have the, let's say, the luxury of just being dreaming in my own bubble, in my own house on my own. But I am with a vengeance,
Good.
because I'm thinking we cannot, in the end, and of course, indeed, we all do this a different way, and certainly with families, it's a whole different matter. But we need to lift ourselves and go beyond this and dare, and not even by governments that don't want to fund us. Nobody should stop us from doing what is actually important, and it's proven by people standing on their balcony singing together.
Yes.
What else? What other proof do we need that this is an important part of human experience, to have the arts? And
don't you think that there is a danger of opera becoming a dead art? This is spoken about in the press, and it really frustrates me, because actually I think contemporary music, that there is the opportunity to really make this a living art, and also to reflect the human condition in the present.
Yes.
Essentially, opera is telling stories, and new stories have been told constantly throughout the last, 5,000 years. We need new stories to be told. New stories are happening all the time, and we need different ways to represent us as a society. So I think that, whilst I like a mixture of genres, I think contemporary opera is really, really important, because there are always going to be new stories to be told, and I think that it's actually a way of keeping this art form alive.
Something that's just occurred to me is, how much of what we do is about the internal dialogues we have, the inside stories. I mean, obviously, a lot of opera is the outside story as well, but I'm just thinking about when probably the music that touches us the most is more about the inside, and how it is that almost a sort of contradiction, where we are expressing something that's very internal externally, and maybe it's we just need to embrace that internal dialogue even more, and just go with it, because that's in a way at the moment all we can do, when we can't be playing all the other stories, as you call them, Rosie.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there is something, is there not, exciting, even though it maybe has taken you 3 years to learn and you've cried yourself to sleep at night learning this. There is something exciting, though, isn't there, about being part of something new?
Yes,
Oh God, yeah.
absolutely.
That is is that the right word? Is it exciting?
Totally.
It's adventurous.
It's an adventure.
And also,
Yeah, I'd say that's right.
no one compares you to, that's the joy of when you create, when I created this role with Gavin Higgins in The Monstrous Child at the Royal Opera House, I was singing High Seas with a 3-meter puppet on my back, giving birth to 3 creatures on a table with a massive vagina. You don't do that in Bellini.
Don't
No.
any ideas now.
It's just like, also no one's comparing me to somebody else. No one says, oh, well, she didn't do it as well as, which I'm sure I probably wouldn't have done. But, it is rather lovely to have this opportunity to go for something and not have any, and have a free reign of your interpretation. That's exciting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go with that. And actually, to extend that one, that is why in any teaching that I do, I always say to my students, try and find another aria to sing. Don't just do Voi che sapete or, because n+1 amount of people will do it and people get bored. Find something else, and then nobody says, oh yes, very nice, but not as good as Fiorenzo Casotto in 1963 in that recording by
True.
But it is true, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see, I agree with everybody that it is exciting, it's something new, and I must admit, when I did Alice, I so enjoyed the production, but there are times when I think that learning to sing the Jabberwocky in Russian has its moments of not wanting to do it.
Most things have those moments, though, in my experience.
But it's there, and I can now do it. I can actually sing, and yeah, great. Don't know what it means, but I can sing it.
Yes, sorry, Carole, go.
No, I was just going to say, I have the fortune to work with Dmitry Chernyakov a lot, and he is taking very old operas and giving them a new and relevant stance to today. And I just want music. I want a nice legato line that I can sing. Yeah, that's what I want as a singer. I don't think it's too much to ask for.
I dream about it at night.
Yes.
A melody that you can sing along to.
Yes. I mean, you go and see Harrison Birtwistle, you don't come out humming the tunes, do you?
Yeah, these are all periods of time where that was to be investigated. So I think melodies are coming back even in contemporary work.
I so love the fact
that composers are really very good at this. Sorry?
I so love the fact that you're saying that, and I'm feeling happier. Thank you.
Good.
But this is what we're doing now, though. We're trying to talk about the now, I guess. But what's quite interesting is we would never do this as a business family, as a roster of artists, or even, we don't do it. We're getting 4 people of, well, Helena will disagree. I was going to say 4 people of the same voice type, but three mezzos. Helena is a contralto, but 3 mezzo. We don't do this. This is quite interesting that actually it's taken this for us to have these kind of conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kudos to you.
Yeah. Yes, because of you, Oliver, and you had this thought, and I'm delighted by it because it means I get to see, other mezzos. But we can't have this conversation because we don't work together.
No, but you probably would. It's interesting, though. Rosie and I have been talking about this, this idea that it's this perennial discussion, isn't it? There are less roles for women. And actually it's true, because even in lots of standard repertoire, just look at something like, well, let's look at Bohème. There are 2 female roles, and aren't there 6 named male roles? I mean, it's this, yeah. It is rarer. I mean, I know it's the oldest story in the world, there's no roles for women. But it is this thing, but actually we are living, aren't we, in a time where there are more things happening, being written, being talked about, where it is important to tell these stories and be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. And I'm a mezzo contralto, I think.
Wait, now you have to change your website, Ollie.
To invent a new file.
And I'm a Zwischenfach, thank you very much.
What though? What are you tuition?
I'm tuition and mezzo. I'm happier singing soprano these days. Although I'll be honest, to all casting directors out there, I'll sing anything that you pay me to sing, just like to make that clear.
Even with the puppets on your back.
Anything.
Or with a gigantic vagina. That will do.
I'll do it. If there's safely somebody out there and they think, who could we get to do this? Rosie and Carole. We'll do it.
They'll do it. Let's go.
I'm thinking you should bring your own gigantic vaginas, just like Maria Callas used to bring her own costume. I happen to have.
We could have a suitcase of them.
I have one that it fits.
No, but I suppose it's true, this idea of puppets on our back, 6-foot vaginas. I remember Stephanie and I going to see Rosie do The Monstrous Child, and we were hysterical in the stalls. I mean, it was hysterical. It's true that actually it doesn't have to be contemporary works that are shocking or that they demand a lot of you. I mean, I remember, Carole, that production you did of Traviata.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you did things in that production which, you know, would shock any theatre-going audience from any genre. I mean, if we watched that in the movies, we would be shocked.
Was that with the French director?
No, it was a German, Andrea Brett.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And at the very beginning of the final scene, when in Traviata, and you know, it's just this tiny little sort of violin. I was giving the doctor a blowjob. Yes. And the thing is, you see, he was the tallest face in the world, Guillaume Antoine. So it meant that if I couldn't go down on my hunkers because my knees are shot. And I couldn't kneel down and stretch because it looked as if he had an unfeasibly large penis. So the poor man had to keep his legs so wide apart. And, you know, he was in hysterics, I was in hysterics, and the audience booed. It was terrible. I was horrified. But I did it. I got paid.
You're still alive.
Yes.
Oh, I'd love to have seen that. Oh, how funny.
Yes, I think there was an awful lot of sniggering going on at the time, but that's beautiful, you know.
Thank you for reenacting that. Maybe you should reenact some of our scenes.
Actually, I don't think we've had that one streamed yet.
No, fuck that, eh? Yeah.
Okay, but let's take a serious turn briefly. I don't know how much longer we've got, but let's just talk about this idea, because I suppose rather than just, well, of course, we're at the moment, nothing else has been on the news for the last 6 weeks other than coronavirus, COVID-19, but just not that long ago, we're rewinding slightly, you know, to the whole, I'm talking here with four wonderful ladies, the idea of the Me Too movement, you know, and with that in our minds and working through that and living through that, you know, has it changed? Do you find the culture is changing in the work you're doing because of what occurred?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because as a woman, you can refer to it much easier than before. Maybe before you were just don't start about that feministic blah blah blah. But now if you say no, but I think this character has such and such thoughts behind it, people listen more carefully to what you have to say. And in my case, I'm adamant to have new pieces composed for my voice type, as only you know, and I'm making a point of making it not. And I'm not an activist at all, but I would just like to have a female viewpoint sometimes in the work. So I'm trying to use female poets as text, or find interesting characters from history, because in all of history there were so many interesting women that have just not been noticed because history is not been by women. Yes. So there are very many interesting characters that we just don't know about, but they could have been as interesting as many male characters. So I'm trying to find these people and have composers write in this with this thought in mind. And I noticed also that people are telling me in the contemporary scene that the money is now to be had, especially for this kind of project where there's more female, or either female composers or interesting female subjects. So that's changing, at least there, for sure.
Great, that's good news.
Yes. My only concern, and obviously I think it goes without saying for me that I think it's hugely important that women have a voice. And my concern is that sometimes I feel that things have changed in terms of perception. I think that the people in charge and what I call the bureaucrats, who in the offices, they want the perception to be that things have changed. My worry is that sometimes it's all talk, and actually I still know from talking to the majority of women, and I include myself in this, I've had experiences in the past. Would I go to company management about them? No. Why? Because I don't want to be seen as a troublemaker. And that is still across the board. Absolutely. That most women have. So in my mind, yes, things have changed, and I think it's going to take an awfully long time for them to really change, not just to have the perception that things have changed.
Do you find it different? Interestingly, do you find it's a different environment when you're, for instance, in opera or concert, if you are working with a female director or a female conductor, is there a different balance? Does it change the situation or not?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to just pipe up there because I had two very different experiences very close together recently. I have to say, working with a female director and assistant director and stage manager, and I felt that although they were incredibly rigorous and, dominant in terms of the whole situation, powerful, they were also incredibly approachable. They were much more, there was less of these sort of, can't talk to me, this is the hierarchy. And they did that very female, apparently, thing of reflecting back to you what they're perceiving you're trying to say to them. Mm-hmm. And I really noticed that because I was working with two older men, not sort of very many weeks before that, two, men in their 60s and 70s. And then I was working with women in their 40s. And it was really interesting. It was so different. It was so different. And for me, much, much, much easier. Much easier in terms of communication and also in terms of my own feelings of self-worth, I'll be honest. Yeah.
I've worked with one female director in my career, only one. Really? And only one, well, okay, until very recently, I was going to say only one female conductor until very recently, and two in the last season. So that's ridiculous, but that's how it's happened. So, I'm very, very wary of talking up too much about women this, women that. I think that we will have made an achievement when we don't have to talk about it.
I was going to say, well, we can be mediocre as well. We can have mediocre women, and that's normal. Why do we only have to have fantastic women who are better than men? Whatever that means. Yeah. You have to have an equal amount, and then there can be a very unpleasant character.
I think the thing that I've noticed though is just the from my experience, I've worked with quite a few women directors and conductors, and on the whole, I'd say that the communication, the general level of communication, I found better. I found less hierarchical, generally speaking.
That could have been the age,
Maybe.
Yeah.
For instance, Stephanie, I remember you did The Handmaid's Tale, the opera.
Yeah.
And that was directed by Phyllida Lloyd. Now, do you think, and I don't know if this is a controversial question, but in my mind, it's entirely suitable that The Handmaid's Tale was directed by a woman. Did it feel important, or does that not matter? Does that really matter now? I mean, does it matter more if the person's going to do a good job and tell the story well, or are there pieces which should maybe be directed by a woman? Or should we not even use the word should anymore?
Yeah, I don't ever think that there's ever a should, actually. But obviously, depending on what what sort of sensibilities you want to bring out, I'd say it's more of a personal thing than a female-male thing, actually. I think that I don't think that question particularly is about male-female. Although it was wonderful working with Philida. I mean, she's just wonderful. She is really,
I've always wanted to.
She's great. Yeah.
But I would think that apart from who we are working with to put these pieces of art on stage, I think it's more in the work itself that there might be a shift, hopefully. Because it is important that Handmaid's Tale was written by a woman, I think, more than who directs it. Is that fair?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I would agree.
In the text itself is where the differences might come out, and we'll stay there. Like if you do Zauberflöte these days, it's quite painful actually when you hear the sudden things and you think, we've been listening to that for centuries and we didn't really think about it. And now what is that? Some texts are just really difficult. And then directors have a hard time trying to make something of it, to sell it these days. But it's actually like, So that's why I think, for instance, I came to this idea of my project when I was singing Frauenliebe und Leben Schumann in a recital. And I thought, wait, I'm singing a man composed this, and it's a male view of a wonderful woman's life, and how she would live and love. And I thought, do I recognize, I recognize the basic human aspect of it, which is why I can sing it. But I would be interested to have a cycle where a woman expresses her own hopes and dreams of her life, possibly. Yeah. And I think that's where it's more of a difference than who conducts it or who directs it. Mm-hmm. Is that fair?
Yes.
No. And I just thought, this is just triviality, only because you mentioned Zauberflöte, and I always think nearly every female singer I know has always done. You have all done ladies in Magic Flute, no?
Oh God. No, I was meant to, and then I missed my opportunity.
No.
I think I was having a baby.
Can't have that with the ladies, of course.
Yeah, tons. I always say, oh my God, please don't make me do another Dritta Dharma.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I quite like Dritta Dharma because you can play her as being really stupid because all she does is follow the other two.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay. And I just used to mosey on after everybody else. And you can make it a really nice little character with Dritta Dharma. Yes. But the second one is just one note and is miserable.
Yeah.
It's one note. He just got really bored.
I never do it.
No.
Why I always do, even though Dritta Dharma is really low for me, I always say, oh, no, I cannot do Dritta Dharma. No.
Dritta Dharma is just awful. But Dritta Dharma
I can guarantee you vocally it would be more interesting, I think, than Philip Glass's Satyagraha. Although it might even be the same note. I think it's the same two notes. Is it like an E natural with an F, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Yeah, same notes. Yeah. Maybe that's where he got his inspiration from.
I thought that is the one
we should probably wind down, but I said I want to do just quick questions which are vaguely amusing, or not amusing. Maybe they're not amusing. I don't know. Just so you all answer the same question, but we'll do it quickly, and then we can virtually kiss each other goodbye until we meet again. Okay. So, and I don't know who wants to answer first. Maybe we'll go in alphabetical order.
I'm last.
So Rosie, Stephanie, Helena, Carole. Okay. So the first question. If you could choose one of the characters you've portrayed to have dinner with tonight, who would you choose?
I'd go for Baba the Turk, because I think she'd be a good laugh, a show off, and I wouldn't have to worry about my facial hair.
Steph?
I think I would pick Offred because there's the mystery of what happened to her afterwards. That's from The Handmaid's Tale, The Handmaid.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what happened. Even though apparently on Netflix it's now told, I'm not kind of there. Well, no, hold on, she wrote the other book, but I don't know. I have other ideas.
Who's next?
You, Helena.
Oh, sorry.
Your turn.
I would like to have dinner with the old Countess from Picdam because I feel that she has tons of stories and I could just sit back and hear all the crazy stories from all of her life.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Like a grandma.
Mine would be Auntie, because not only does she know where all the bodies are buried, she'll bring the nicest beer and wine.
Good choice.
Yay!
Very good. Okay, this is probably more serious. The best note you've ever had from either a conductor or director that stayed with you?
A lot of my favourites have been completely blue, so I won't say most of them. But my favourite one was, if you don't feel it, fake it.
That is for the whole of your life, love.
Not good. What time is it?
Brilliant. It's my turn.
It's your turn.
You know, I don't have a big catalogue in my mind of this. So I'm going to pass on this one. If I come up with one, I'll let you know.
You have to buy us all a drink when this is all over.
Okay.
Yes. Mine is, I think, trust your own instincts. Trust your own instincts in the character.
That's useful.
That was very helpful to me.
Yeah. Mine, it's two, and they're both from Richard Jones. Okay.
Oh, I know what mine is. Right.
Okay. Well, I'm
you can come back to me after.
You go back to you later. My two were the first one from Richard was, yes, Carole, I know what you're trying to do, but keep it your secret.
Oh, lovely.
And I really like that because I do have a tendency to overplay. What, me? Yes. I do have a tendency. So that was the first one. I've always used that. And then the second one, which was also from Richard, and I think in the same rehearsal, which was, that was really good, Carole. Don't do it again.
I think I've had a similar one.
I was going to say, that sounds recognizable.
Oh, I love those. That's brilliant. Lovely.
Yeah. What came to you?
So mine was nothing you do is a mistake. So everything that you're creating is valid. And so that was very freeing.
Yeah.
And also I think the objective in that case was really not to start analyzing and breaking, because it was quite a still, there was a lot of stillness. And so to just be told nothing that I'm doing is ever a mistake, that was really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So let's flip the coin then. And the next question is, what's the worst career advice you've ever had? I hope it wasn't me that gave it to you.
No. Well, again, I could go on for hours. But keep your personality neutral in auditions, I was told. And that was very early on in my career, and I can tell you now that it was you, Ollie, that told me to stop doing that. When I was myself in auditions, my career took off.
Yeah.
So because people thought, oh, she's a laugh. She's open. She's human. We can work with her. So that was terrible. And the other thing, or two other things. It's one thing I really want to get in. I was told. By one person, Ollie, I had to say this for you. Do you remember this? That the way I presented myself in terms of wearing pearls or whatever was holding me back. So I've just popped these on.
Revenge.
And the final thing is the pigeonholing of being told I was a character contralto when I could sing high C's comfortably because they couldn't be bothered to find me the work to do anything else. Thank you.
I think my worst advice came from a singing teacher who told me that I had to sing Rossini. That just about killed me. I mean, yeah. That was kind of like saying play to your weaknesses, not your strengths.
Interesting.
Helena?
Yeah, Rossini was never my bag. So the worst advice I ever had was sing Rossini.
Yeah.
And you'll get work.
In your next life.
Yeah.
Well, it's similar. In mine is similar. I was told for the longest time, told that I'm a mezzo, a dramatic mezzo, and and which really held me in the shades for a long time because I felt instinctively that what I imagined those parts should sound like I couldn't sustain. I had all the notes, but I couldn't actually do it. So I thought I was a miserable mezzo and was hiding behind the bushes until I realized actually I'm a contralto with a half decent height instead of a failing mezzo with nice low notes. So that's why I'm so adamant to have contralto, not between brackets, but zip out there, because to me it was life-changing. And similarly to what you're saying, Rosie, is that since then I realized what I am. It comes also back to trust your own instincts. You know inside what you are and what you're to do or not. Trust it. And it's so hard because people are saying all these things. No, you should be like this, you should be like that. And at some point you just have to go, shut it, everyone. Yeah. This is me and this is what I'm doing. And that to me was so life-changing. And similarly, since then, I've known what I am and how to present myself, and that's changed everything.
Yeah.
Last question, okay, and then we shall disappear into our isolation caves. If there is, dare we hope, a casting director watching, still at his desk, if there was one role, one dream role, what would it be? 1, 2, 3, go.
I hate this question. I hate it. I can't answer it exactly because it changes. But today it's going to be, I'd love to do Kostonichka in Yennefer because I think the emotional journey is really exciting. And I would like to take that journey.
Good.
Right. Well, I've been wanting to sing Octavian for a long time now, and it hasn't changed. Oh. I would really, really love to perform that role.
You so look the part today, though.
Yeah.
You're in costume.
You are in costume. See, we figured it out.
Yeah. There we go. That's it.
For me, it's difficult because I had all these dreams of mezzo roles that I then had to say goodbye to. And there was my mourning process at some point when I said, oh, I can never sing Octavian or Eboli or all of these things. So now I'm, as you say, it's difficult to say, it changes by day, but today I would like to sing Geneviève and Debussy, simply because I love Debussy. Even the part itself as much, but yeah.
For me, it's always come down to two. One is the Gräfin in Picovaya Dama, which I've done before and was going to do again, sob, and now can't, sob. And then the other one, which is a one that nobody knows, and for God's sake would suit you, Rosie, down to the ground, so I shouldn't be telling you this, but it's a fab role. It's the role of the Kniaginya in Tchaikovsky's Enchantress.
Write that down, Ollie.
Yeah.
What's that again?
Seriously, it's the role of the princess Kniaginya Yevpraksia in The Enchantress by Tchaikovsky.
Oh, I love that.
And it is the most amazing role. I've done it once, but it wasn't, oh God, I think it was somewhere like 2012. And it is the role to commit murder for. There you go.
And that's where we call it to a close. What a moment. There we go.
It's been fun.
Oh, it's
yeah.
lovely.
Rosie.
Ollie, thank you so much.
No,
Yes,
it's good fun.
you.
Okay. I will now end the meeting and we shall be in touch soon.
Yes.
Lovely.
Stay safe, everyone. Lots of love.
You too. Stay
Bye.
safe. Bye.
Wow.
Bye.